and a sense of joy on the other as the fundamental dialectic of being of African descent in the New World. The first prose of his own is the sentence, between me and the outside world there is an unasked question. And what is that question, Dr. Du Bois? It is the question, how does it feel to be a problem? How does it feel to be a problem? What Du Bois is getting at, of course, is the fact that part of the absurd condition is the perception of black folk as a problem people rather than people with problems. There is a big difference. Because if you are a problem people, then your very presence generates unease and dis-ease and fear and anxiety among those whose aim is to control and manipulate and degrade and dishonor and devalue you. Whereas all human beings have problems. Every featherless, two-legged, linguistically conscious creature born between urine and feces, that's human beings. They have problems. Every human being has to try to come to terms with some meaning and value. Every human being has to confront inevitable and unavoidable and inescapable extinction. That can produce some problems. But that's different than being perceived as a problem people. Because a problem people are then viewed as part of some undifferentiated blob, some monolithic and homogeneous conglomerate, which means then that each and every black person becomes interchangeable and substitutable. Same value, same orientation, same sentiment, same sensibility, which means, of course, from the white supremacist point of view, you only need to ask one to know what the rest of us think. Ralph Ellison called it the condition of invisibility in his great novel of 1952, which means that even though our phenotype is most visible, our humanity is invisible. That our individuality is invisible, our diversity is invisible, our heterogeneity is invisible, our multiplicity is invisible. Because what? Because we're part of one homogeneous blob. You might recall a few years ago when Brother Jesse was running for president and they had on the cover of Newsweek a time, I forget which one, Tweedledee, Tweedledum. What does Jesse want? What does Jesse want? If we could just find out what Jesse wants, we know what all black people want. No, what Jesse wants is what Jesse wants. Black folk got critical perspectives on this thing. We acknowledge his achievements, but all prophets are imperfect. All prophets in need of critique. There's need for engagement, interrogation, and contestation, questioning of one another, mediated by respect, yes, but an acknowledgement that when we gather all the various perspectives, that the focus is where it belongs, on black suffering and how in the world we're going to overcome it, how in the world we're going to transform it. That's what's at stake. That's what's so very important about the slave theater, one of the few public institutions where we can have dialogue with one another. We must have dialogue with one another. We've got things to learn from each other. No ideological stream has a monopoly on truth or virtue. Brother Sharpton, how you doing there, brother? Good to see you. Lord, it's good to see this brother. We're going to be pulling and praying for him tomorrow in Albany at 1:15 as he stands in front of the hall and presents his petitions. It's going to be quite real, quite real. But the issue of dialogue is so very important because one of the means by which we're able to burst out of our condition of invisibility It's no accident that this condition of invisibility and namelessness has produced such a deep identity crisis among people of African descent. We see it not simply in the struggle of various names over the years. You all know the names from colored and black, the Afro-American, the African-American, the African, the Ethiopian, the Nubian, the Balalian. One could go on and on and on, struggling for a sense of who we are. But we also see it on a very individual level in terms of the names that loving mothers and fathers choose for their black children. Not Michelle, but Michelet. Not Terry, but Tarcell. Not Wayne, but Joanne. We can go on and on and on. Why? Because the black parent is saying that I want your name to be so unique and distinctive that people don't lose track of your individuality, because you will be a candidate for this undifferentiated blob, and they'll lose sight of your humanity because they'll think that your name is just like everybody else's name. That's a form of linguistic struggle. That's a form of struggle at the barest visceral level of trying to provide a means by which the very identity of a young child can be sustained on the battleground in which they will inevitably find themselves. And of course, Islamic brothers and sisters in the nation have X, Muhammad, Farrakhan, as a way of displacing a name associated with a history of subordination and degradation, struggling over this name. And you all know, of course, James Baldwin's great text, nobody knows my name. No name in the street. Trying to come to terms with this dilemma, as it were, of making the move from a problem people to a people who with dignity and decency can engage or embark on a struggle for self-determination. Du Bois goes on in that text to say the problem of the 20th century will be the problem of the color line. And of course, what Du Bois in part is getting at is the degree to which black humanity being problematized itself will serve as a major impediment for the very survival of not just this particular country, but a survival of a world system that historically has been based in part on the exploitation and oppression of black peoples. Du Bois was quite prophetic and prescient in 1903 when he talked about this problem of the color line. Now for me, and this is where we begin to see both overlap and tension in the precious black freedom struggle. For me, the struggle against white supremacy and its vicious and pernicious effects and consequences is a version of what I call loosely the radical democratic tradition. For many other brothers and sisters who love black folk, the black freedom struggle is going to be primarily a matter of national self-determination, because the radical democratic tradition has proven itself to be unable to deliver when it comes to dealing with the misery of the black majority, the black mass. And that's the very crux of our struggle.